For the Young at Heart is sponsored by Duville Life and Wellness Community, a commitment to care, a legacy of compassion. This is Duville.
Hello, welcome to For the Young at Heart. I'm Lucille Jerome. My guest today is Lisa Sobian. She's an LICSW social worker, and she's the director of the Special Care Services at Duville Life and Wellness Community. She's been a guest before, and today we're going to be talking about the use of music with our elderly patients, any elders actually, and then a little bit of a focus on dementia, because it's been found through research to be very, very helpful. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for coming again.
You're welcome. It's great to be here again, Lucille.
Thank you. There's so much going on now with research on the use of music. Let us begin with some of this history and what you've found out.
So music, music has been around for forever, really. I was actually looking at trying to figure out when did music first start, and I don't think they had it. They think maybe our ancestors maybe started with clapping, or they did have at some point the anatomy to sing, but we don't know when they started to do that. So that was there's a whole study of, I think, musicology that's called the history. So I was really getting interested in that. But my interest with music is certainly with memory loss and how that the brain is affected with memory loss and how music can tie in and open things up. And Oliver Sacks, who's a very famous noted neurologist, he actually wrote a book called Musicophilia, and he talked about music specifically and memory and emotion and the interplay they all had with each other. And especially the impact on people with severe memory loss. And Oliver Sacks, I have a quote from him that I really like. He said, "The past which is not recoverable in any other way is embedded as if in amber in the music, and people can regain a sense of identity." So I think that there's so much research going on about how songs from our past can really evoke vivid memories.
Right. Well, we can do that from our own lives. We don't, really.
Absolutely.
I remember rock and roll when it first, I'm aging right now. I'm giving myself
dating
away.
yourself.
I am dating myself. But I do remember when it first came out in the early 50s. And then I remember later on, too, the doo-wop generation. So, but every generation has their own music, it sounds like, too, right?
Yes, there's definitely generational music. And there's cultural, across different cultures. Definitely, and even within generations, there's different music. I mean, I grew up, I was more of an 80s child, and there were definitely, like Led Zeppelin was really big, then some bands from the 70s. But there were also the soft rock was suddenly a big thing, and I was kind of more of a soft rock kind of girl. My family laughs at me because my favorites were Barry Manilow and Air Supply and things like that, and I really enjoyed the classic rock also. But I know that listening to some of those songs that I just really loved, it brings out a different sense of joy in me. I have one of my dearest and oldest friends. We hadn't seen each other in a while, and we would try to meet maybe once a year. And one time we were meeting, and she handed me, and this was before I knew anything about this whole thing about music and emotions. And she handed me a CD she had burned. I don't know if anybody remembers CDs, but
that's right.
And it was songs that were our favorite that we used to listen to. And I popped it in the car and started listening to it. And I just welled up with tears but just these incredible emotions of love and joy and memories, and it was just so profound. I listened to that over and over again. And so I'm sure you have experiences like that too.
Yes. There are songs that I can remember very much. Actually, I remember folk music from the 1960s as being very evocative for me, apart from everything else. But I do remember, even though rock and roll came in, there was still the Perry Comos and the Nat King Coles, the popular music, and classical music too. But it's like there's a genre that takes precedence in a
Yes.
generation.
Oh,
you know?
absolutely. When I went to the first high school reunion of mine growing up in New York that I went to was my 30th. When it came time, they were playing the music and we were all kind of dancing and it was great. And I remember one of the very popular songs when I was in high school was It's Raining Men.
Oh, gee.
And it was a very popular song. And that was playing, and it dawned on me at that moment that all the music they were playing, I don't know why it would have been a surprise, but all of the music they were playing was from the music that my high school class grew up with. And we were sitting there and we were,
Yes.
jumping up and down and going like this.
Yes.
I remember at that moment really understanding why, when we're in a special care unit, we try to play the music from their
Okay.
generation, because it was just the flood of positivity and joy and emotions was just incredible.
Yeah. So it brings it to life for them, so they can go
Yes.
back in time to a good memory.
Absolutely.
memory.
And part of that is because of our brain.
Right.
It's not just happenstance that, you put on music and it feels good. There is a part of our brain that is really spared from this disease. And it kind of connects, it connects music and memory together in our brain, which is why music can alleviate some anxiety and distress with people who have memory loss. You could even not have memory loss and know that you used music as a coping technique
Exactly.
when you're
exactly.
distressed.
Right.
And
and we don't lose that.
no,
You
that's
d-
the thing.
we don't lose
lose
that.
that
Okay.
at any point. And sometimes we have people who can't speak any longer. Their words are gone. But they will be able to sing the words from those childhood songs that they had, and you think, oh my goodness. And that's because of where that part of the brain is still there.
Still there.
And so it's something that you can use with anyone whose brain is healthy through the very late stages of the disease process.
And how they react to the music differs a little bit with each stage, but they don't lose it.
Right.
Okay.
I think, they've done a lot of research through Music in Memory, which is an organization that looks at the potency of technology and using people's own personal playlists, those songs that were really important to them. And there was a wonderful documentary called Alive Inside that people can look at.
Okay.
And it looks at people who really are not responding anymore. And when you put those headphones on them with their music, not just anybody's music, they become, they almost become alive, and they come out of their shell more, and it's just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful to watch.
So they would get that music probably from family members or things
Yes,
of
so-
that nature,
yes,
or even
so-
notes someone had written early on.
Absolutely, and you can
Okay.
try to even, see by playing things for somebody and see if it elicits a response.
Right.
We are part of the Music in Memory organization
Okay.
at Duville, and we do have the iPods, and we have a survey for families to do. We try to work with the residents, and it's really lovely.
Okay. So in the back of my mind now, I'm thinking, but some music might not bring forth positive, pleasant memories. So, but through this program and any other programs that people would know about,
Exactly.
you just don't use those songs.
Right.
Right?
Absolutely. You might know. I mean, that's why it's important to have as much information and personal
Right,
history as you
right.
can, because you might know that this
Yeah.
song, I think we've all seen times where certain, the holidays.
The holidays, we were talking earlier before we started. I know there are people who do not tolerate at all I'll Be Home for Christmas during the Christmas season. So if they've got a radio station on that's playing all Christmas
Yes.
music and it sounds wonderful and they have a good time, but then that comes on, they lose the mood.
Exactly.
They lose the mood.
Exactly. And there's so much you can do with music. It's not just listening to music. There's also
Right.
music therapy, which is a whole
That's right.
study of therapeutically using music. And they have shown that with music therapists, they can really affect people in terms of focus and
Really?
and they're changing their breathing. And I've seen music therapists work with rehab people in terms of getting them moving. So there's a really sweet story that I'll share. We have a music therapist on my unit, and I walked in one day and he does a drum circle. So if you don't know what a drum circle is, it's really kind of exciting, and you need to know what you're doing to do it. There's no way I could sit and lead a drum
All
circle.
right.
It would be
You wouldn't want me
it would
to
be
fry.
a cacophony of just noise and all of that. But I walked in, and they were doing rhythms, and I saw somebody who doesn't really talk very much, and the music therapist was kind of doing his rhythm, and I saw this person start going 1 2 3 1 2 3, and they were getting the rhythm, and it was drawing them
Right,
out and,
right.
and eliciting responses, and or watching somebody with a mallet kind of, you might have to start them hand over hand, but
Okay.
then get the rhythm going, and it's
So
great.
you might start them off, but then
Muscle memory
the
kicks in.
muscle
Yeah.
will kick in. So there's a difference. There's music therapy,
Yes.
and then there are these other programs. There's lots
Right.
of different ways of doing it.
Absolutely.
But the point would be, you're reaching somebody who might appear to be totally lost, and they're not.
And even somebody, hospice uses music so much. Somebody
yeah,
at the very,
yeah,
very end stages
yeah,
of their life
yeah.
who may not be responding,
Yeah.
but we don't know. We always hear about at the end stages people can still hear on some level,
Right,
and so
right,
it's so
right.
important to
Yeah.
have that. And for some people at the end stages it may be very, meditative
Calming.
use. Some people it may be that rock and roll.
It might be. It might be. Well, I think I was telling you a story about years ago. There was a woman on one of the units. She had had a stroke, a brain attack, whatever you want to call it nowadays. But her husband was so solicitous, and they had a favorite radio station, classical music. And so part of the treatment plan was to leave it on that station for her. And that was very calming for her. And when he came in, he would bring in, well, in those days it would have been cassettes. Actually, we're going back here. We're going back here. But he would bring in cassettes of ballroom dancing music, because they used to love to go ballroom dancing. And that was their special time together. Okay?
That's
So
beautiful.
she really lost a lot, but she still had that. Okay.
And they still had that together.
And they still had that together.
Absolutely.
The relationship was still continuing.
Absolutely.
So the therapeutic, social, there's a lot of dimensions we're touching on here.
Yes,
A lot of
absolutely.
dimensions.
And I think now, because some of your viewers may be involved with elder services,
Right.
and they have a program where
They
they
have
have these iPods
Okay.
that they can give to families
Okay.
who are caring for somebody at home, which
that's
is really
wonderful,
nice.
too. So it helps the caregiver too,
Absolutely.
I would think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so it evokes emotions, whether or not someone had an app. What if someone was very musically inclined? So this is an even added benefit?
Absolutely. So sometimes you'll see somebody who, there's a lot of people who grew up playing music, or
Yeah, right.
that was their
Piano.
profession, piano.
That was a very popular thing. You were not
Absolutely.
cultured if you didn't play piano.
Exactly. And, I've seen our music therapist work with people, and our activity staff work with people to get them back into maybe utilizing that instrument that they had. And it's amazing to watch sometimes where some of the language may be lost, but
They can still play?
They can still play. And it can be so therapeutic for somebody. Think about it also, if that was your identity,
Right.
or part of your identity, maybe that was your hobby or
Sure.
whatever it was,
Sure.
and you've lost the ability to do that, to have that back is profound from a self-esteem point of view, for sure.
So I'm thinking of people maybe with arthritis. Maybe they have the beginnings of arthritis, but with training through music, maybe with therapeutic music, being able to do it again. Or maybe that doesn't even apply to some people, but just to be able to begin again something you used to do.
Absolutely. And you do forget, I took 6 years of piano lessons, and I love piano. I was not great at piano by any stretch of the
I
imagination.
was not great.
But I sometimes sit down at our piano and I want to play again. And I have to say, there's a few songs, classical pieces or whatever, The Piano Man by Billy Joel, that I can crank out that are so embedded in my memory that I can do it. However, it's been so long that for people who are music and understand the piano, there's two different clefs. There's the treble clef and the bass
Right.
clef. And I have really lost the memory of what note is in the bass clef.
Okay.
So I sometimes sit down, and then sometimes I find I get frustrated because I'm not retaining it like I used to. And I think, I would love to take piano lessons again because I would love to get that back. But it's just
Maybe
amazing
you
what
will.
Maybe I
you
will.
will someday.
Absolutely, I would love to
Sure,
do that.
Sure. And with dementia, because I've seen a particular woman come down upstairs and sit at the piano and play. And
Yes.
plays beautifully.
Yes.
Plays beautifully. And then people
Absolutely.
will sit around her as though she's coming in to
Absolutely.
entertain her, which then
Absolutely.
gives her an added benefit too, seeing
for
all these
sure.
people smiling
Absolutely.
at her.
Absolutely.
You know? So there's multiple benefits here. Multiple.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's just incredible
Yeah.
what music can do.
So all this research, I'm getting curious now about when this research really began and how it's been not so much implemented, but incremental improvements. And now we know this, now we know that. We've seen this, we can do research on that. So it keeps growing incrementally about what we can know about music.
It does. I think they have started to really, I don't know when, but they've started to really look at that as a whole kind of research. And there's a lot connected with music and the brain and physics. And like there's just different science that connects with music also. Neuroscience. You may have somebody who's
Right.
studying, music and neuroscience together and putting that together. It's, music, it's like a tapestry almost of the people we've interacted with, the seasons, events, different memories that music then weaves that tapestry together to elicit those emotions.
Right. Like every summer, there's almost a song that comes out. It's a Summer Love or
Yes.
Summer whatever. Summer Love would have been in the 1950s.
Okay.
Where
Yep.
with Summer Love, but almost every summer there is some song that'll come through, and that's got to go somewhere in the memory.
Sure.
The beauties of summer and playing
Sure.
on a beach or at a
Absolutely.
campsite or something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So it can reduce stress. It
Yes.
can reduce stress.
In the general population, it can also reduce stress in people who have dementia. Now, I have met a few people who just don't like music.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we're
Yeah.
not going to force it on somebody. Now, certainly if somebody didn't like music, but perhaps they, with dementia, you see different damage, different parts of the
That's
brain.
right. That's right.
Inhibitions are gone, so
Right.
sometimes people will try new things. Most people like some music. Some people, it's the music they grew up with in church. And
That's
that's
right.
very important. And that is rhythmic. And that's part of why that's so powerful, is because the rhythm, that part of the brain is spared for a very long time, the part that does rhythm. So we find for people who have grown up with the rosary, that can be almost like a form of meditation
Yes.
for them.
Yes, and you mentioned the drumming earlier that
Yes.
neither of us would want to try on anybody, but the rhythm of it.
The rhythm,
So
yes.
it's the rhythm too.
Absolutely, the rhythm can be
Okay.
very soothing.
Yeah.
Very soothing, and I think that familiar music, the activation in different regions, it activates motor regions, it activates emotions, creativity, the area of creativity. So I think sometimes having music can spur some more creativity.
So I'm thinking someday, in terms of creativity and the use of creativity, I'm thinking someday we might want to do a program on the use of art.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm thinking something like that.
Only if we can color while we're talking.
Okay, granted, we'll bring in coloring books and do that, sure, okay? But there's that element of the brain, and there's this connection somehow, okay? And we don't lose that. Well, I've seen you have someone who comes in and the Rod Stewart look-alike. I've seen it personally,
Yes.
how people don't
my
speak,
gosh.
don't move. They'll be tapping their fingers,
Yes.
they'll be tapping their
Yes.
toes, they'll be
Yes.
humming along.
I
And some
think
of them
that's
say
really
the words.
salient. Absolutely. I think
You
it's
know?
because that music is hitting those motor
Yes.
parts, and
Yes.
it's such an incredible, for anybody who's interested, you can get online and really look at the neuroscience research they're
Yeah,
doing with
right,
music, because
right,
there's
right.
just so much out there now, and I wish I knew exactly when that whole field started.
I don't know, but it's fascinating just thinking about it.
They've actually used music for people with strokes to regain speech. So sometimes for people who have had impairments from their strokes and can't speak, by using music and having them sing certain things first, that will heal eventually and lead to being able to speak. And I remember there was a senator from Arizona who had a gunshot wound in her brain. And I believe this is true, someone would have to fact check this, but I think she was involved in her therapy in using that kind of music therapy to help her heal.
Okay. So along with all of this, part of the assessment process when someone is admitted to the nursing home or an assisted living or the dementia care special units, part of the assessment is what kinds of things were helpful in the past.
Yes.
And music might be one of them, something else might work with somebody
Absolutely.
else. So that is part of the assessment process.
Oh, absolutely. And I think both social services and the activity staff kind of look at that, and then we happen to take it a step beyond because we
Right.
want to get those playlists, and we will
Right.
give them those listener surveys and
Right.
say, help us with this. And sometimes you can't get that information.
Right.
But you can sit with
Oh.
somebody and you can play a piece of music and see, does it elicit a memory?
Right.
Yes. All right, let's keep going with that kind of genre.
Of course. So maybe there is no information from the family
Right.
because maybe their family member, it was so long ago that they don't remember it and they
they
never
didn't-
talked
and they
about it.
didn't listen to music
There
when
you go. There
they
you go.
had grown
Sure.
up. Absolutely.
But that's another way. So you don't have that information, but you can try out different music to
Absolutely.
see.
And I think what's really nice about knowing what people really like and what really strikes them is because you can have somebody, you could put on a piece of music for a whole group, you could have an entertainer for a whole group, but that doesn't mean, people may enjoy it, but that doesn't mean it's going to tap into the same exact places.
Right.
And we never want to assume. I mean, you might assume that of a particular generation, people in their 80s and 90s, that a certain era is the music they like, but I have people who, still like rock and roll who are.
Right.
And that wasn't really, the music that they had.
Right.
then.
But somehow that connected with them. It's
Absolutely.
where the connection is, the
Exactly.
emotional connection that you were
Exactly.
talking about earlier.
Exactly.
Maybe they danced
Yes.
with their husband or a
Yes.
favorite date when they were
yeah.
younger or something.
Absolutely.
Okay, so it could be any. It's like a trigger.
Yes.
It's going to be
Right.
a trigger.
Right.
In the old days, we would call it a trigger.
Absolutely. And we
Okay.
want it to be certainly a positive trigger.
Positive trigger. That's key too. Finding out with the assessment process what works, what
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Absolutely.
And sometimes in those groups where an entertainer does come in, might not connect with some people at
Right.
all.
Oh, we've had people who
Do they walk out? I mean, do they leave? I mean,
Yeah, and we've had people who walk out of drum circle because to them it feels chaotic, even
Okay.
though, or it feels it's too much noise.
Okay.
It does because the noise builds, and,
Right,
and
right.
if you like it, it's a beautiful experience.
right,
but
right.
it's not for everybody.
No.
And I think that's why you've got to look at the signs of people and
Yeah,
look and see,
yeah.
is this working for them?
really good observation skills.
Yes.
So what sounds and feels like rhythm to some people feels like cacophony and really just noise to somebody else.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think about some of the music that I feel like I'm dating myself now, but
That's
some of the,
okay, you can
some
have
of
a turn.
I like rhythm and blues, but
Yeah.
I do like some rap, but it wouldn't be my go-to. And some of it I find is just I go to the gym and I do a lot of classes and yoga and things like that. And there's some music that the instructor who's so much younger is playing, and I'm just like, oh, this isn't necessarily the music I would choose to be
right.
doing this.
Well, you need a certain beat. When we do Zumba Gold,
right,
for
you
example, you
do.
need
Yeah.
a certain beat. It is certainly not going to be doo-wop. It is certainly not going to
Right,
be any
exactly,
of that.
exactly.
But when I hear that on the radio, I'll say, oh, I know that song.
Yeah,
I know
that's
that
true.
song.
Yep.
Okay, I know that one. I might tap
Absolutely.
my feet.
Right, absolutely.
Oh my God, such an important topic that we're dealing with today.
Yes, I think so.
You know?
And I think anything
Yeah.
dealing with the brain, there's so much we still don't know about the brain.
I know. We're lucky to be living with all the stuff going on, with all the problems we have and everything going on. We're still lucky because we're at a time when there is research going on and the world, and the gates are opening up to so much more that we can
Yes.
learn to understand and help
Absolutely.
our elders.
Absolutely.
Help our
Absolutely.
elders.
Oh,
you know?
absolutely. And there's even music is it's not. I sometimes we think, okay, this is the music we have. It's very linear, but there are other cultures that have different scales than we have.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, I must have known that somewhere.
so-
China.
Yep.
Definitely,
Yep.
yeah.
Some
Okay.
Middle Eastern,
Yeah.
different. The scales are just not the same as ours.
So you have someone maybe from an elder Vietnamese or Cambodian or
Right.
China.
I don't know what they, right. And I don't know which cultures necessarily have different
Right,
scales.
but I'm just wondering,
Yeah.
but the music that they would appreciate more,
Absolutely.
the Middle East.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay. you mentioned earlier, if someone was very religious, they might,
Yeah.
church music,
Yes.
gospel music,
Yes,
whatever.
right.
So again, that's part of the assessment process.
Absolutely.
Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
My goodness. So this passion of yours to work with this population, that's been building up over many years, hasn't it?
It has,
Yes.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
music has always been just a passion of mine to
Yeah,
listen
yeah,
to.
yeah.
And
I think it's in your
and-
genes. I think I
think
said
so
that
somewhere. But I think, and just understanding the brain is just something
Yeah.
that is,
Are there certain
Fascinating.
musicals or musical groups that some people gravitate to more than others?
Sure.
Like I'm thinking Cats. That was a
Yeah, that was a
musical.
right,
There's different
yes.
musicals,
absolutely.
but I'm wondering, does
Well, I can give you an example of that, and I don't know if this works for everybody, but I grew up listening to musicals. I love musicals. I was in some in high school, and some of them just, I just love the music. I love the music in most musicals. My youngest, though, he's grown up with listening to Hamilton and
yes.
Phantom and Les Mis, and
Les
sometimes
Mis, I love Les
is
Mis.
wonderful. Sometimes I will put on, I'll say, let's watch. What was it recently? Camelot, because I love
yes.
Camelot. I love, and he just was kind of like, and I think part of it because the storyline was, it's like
Right.
watching sometimes an older movie that I'll put on. I'll say, this was one of my favorite movies growing up, and
Yeah.
it just doesn't hold his attention.
Right,
and
right.
because that's just
Yeah,
a generational
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
I'm sure my grandparents said the same thing about me.
Oh, I don't know. Probably yes. Probably yes. But that's fascinating too, because you're learning something about each other
Yes.
through that process
Yes,
too.
absolutely.
Now, do you show musicals on the unit? I know they show
Sometimes.
movies downstairs, but
Yep,
show those-
sometimes.
yeah,
We've
okay.
had a couple people who, The King and I was just, they could
Oh,
watch
that's
that
another
over
one.
and over, and that was beautiful. I saw that on Broadway with Yul Brynner. That was just
I actually
incredible.
remember seeing. Now this really dates me. I actually remember seeing Anna and the King of Siam when I was very young. When you'd go to the movies on Saturdays, and you'd come home with a dish or a glass or something, because in those days they used to give you something. You'd see 2 movies, but I remember seeing that with my grandparents. Anna and the King of Siam,
Wow.
which predates The King and I with Yul Brynner.
Yes.
But I remember seeing that too. Yeah.
That's-
But you're right. This is so much going on. So much
Yeah.
going on. And believe it or not, we're going to be closing down shortly.
Oh, my
We only
goodness.
have about another minute.
Oh,
so.
my goodness.
So it always goes by so fast.
It
Always
really does.
you
It
know?
really does. If I could mention one thing that we
Sure,
didn't
sure.
talk about is I think a couple of other things about music in general is that singing can be very engaging.
Singing.
With and think about people who get together and they jam and they sing,
Yes,
and
yeah,
just
yeah.
singing for people who, bringing that out for people with memory loss, and
Okay.
also it can bring about emotional and physical closeness too.
Yes.
It really
yes. So singing can help. I guess if I'm ever in a place you don't want me to sing, I'll tell you that much right now.
But music can bring people
But it can
together.
bring people together
closeness
differently.
and- yes,
Sure.
absolutely.
I could be there next to people singing and enjoy.
And you can sing. You go right ahead and sing, Lucille.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Anyway, thank you so much, Lisa.
You're
We've learned a
welcome.
lot today, and I hope this has been helpful to. I know it's been helpful to our audience and the certain programs that you're offering. Thank you again.
You're so welcome. Thanks for
and,
having me.
It's someday we're going to have a program on using the arts.
Wonderful.
Okay. And we'll do our coloring.
Great.
Okay. Thank you again
You're
for coming, and
welcome.
thank you for watching. Until the next time, this is Lucille Jerome and Lisa talking about music. Take care. Bye-bye.
For the Young at Heart is sponsored by Duville Life and Wellness Community, a commitment to care, a legacy of compassion. This is Duville.